Welcome to Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, a podcast that illuminates real solutions to common problems within the parking industry. I'm your host, Brian Wolff, CEO of Parker Technology, and in each episode, I'll introduce you to real parking pros that will bring their own tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. Okay, on the show today is Neil Hart, Vice President of University Operations for Reimagined Parking. Neil Hart brings more than 30 years of parking and transportation leadership experience to Reimagined Parking. He began his career in frontline operations, gaining hands-on knowledge that shaped his commitment to operational detail and customer service. In 2003, he transitioned into higher education and healthcare operations, spending over a decade as Director of Support Services and Transportation for MD Anderson Cancer Center, followed by a role as Director of Auxiliary Enterprises at the University of Texas Medical Branch. Neil is perhaps best known for his more than 8 years at the University of Houston, his alma mater, where he served as Assistant Vice President of Parking and Transportation Services. There he oversaw large multi-million-dollar parking, shuttle, and valet operations, as well as auxiliary services including food services, bookstore operations, student housing, and university recreation centers. He holds an MBA in healthcare from Our Lady of the Lake University and holds the PTMP and CASP certifications. He serves on the board of directors for the Texas Parking and Transportation Association. As of February 2026, he joined Reimagined Parking, bringing that deep operational expertise to the national stage and to the dark side. Neil, welcome to Harder Than It Looks.
Thank you, Brian. Glad to be here.
It's taken us a little while to get you on the show, if I'm being honest.
Yes, I been avoiding it at all costs. I have a face for radio, so I was trying to stay out, but you finally got me here.
I finally got you. Well, I have seen you speak several times, and it's going to be a good show. So I'm super excited about that part of it. And so thank you for taking the time to join us today. All right. So what I like to do is I like to hand the mic to my guest. And I like to, we read a lot of your background, so we got a little bit of the steps in the place, but what I like to hear is a little of the texture around how you got from place to place. So you can go back as far as you want to go, and I'll hand you the mic and sort of tell us the Neil Hart story.
Sure. Well, we'll go ahead and start from the beginning because, parking folks love to say how they got into parking, right? And,
Sure.
And most parking people did not sign up for parking at the beginning. And I'm no different. I wanted to be a sports writer. My undergrad is in journalism. So back then, I really wanted to be a beat writer for a sports section of a newspaper. Every job that I tried to get, the only thing that they would hire you for when you were still in college is distribution, which really meant loading the trucks at 4:30 in the morning. And quite honestly, in college, that wasn't my goal to be up at 4:30 in the morning. So I just happened to know someone who was a manager of a valet at the Hyatt Regency here in Houston. And he offered me an assistant manager job of a valet parking operation. So that's where it all started. I did that for a while, finished school through that, then kept going. I worked with private parking companies early on. I was here in Houston, then I was at the Tampa airport, then I was in Chattanooga. At that point, I was out of parking. I was like, I'm done. We're going to move back to Houston. I've had my time. I'm never going back, never, ever. So I came back. I was a travel agent for a few years. So I was fine, happy and content. And one of the people that I knew from the parking world asked me if I would be interested in a parking job. And I said, no. Actually, I said, hell no. And then he kept calling and he called again and called again. And so I told him, I was like, well, I will look into it for you as long as there's two things. One, it doesn't have a valet component because I've been there, done that. And that's just a very, very hard thing to do. And most importantly, back then, you got to remember there was these things called coin boxes. People would pay their money in coin slots, and you'd have to go do the handle, let all the money fall to the bottom. And there would be some very creative and nasty ways that people would try to get that money out of those coin boxes. Everybody that was around you, most of the time these were in downtown settings, most of the time around you, they thought it was millions of dollars in those boxes. So you'd feel people watching you. So it was nasty and unsafe. So those are my two absolutes. I was like, I'll think about it. as long as it doesn't have this. And I was assured that it had neither. So I finally got convinced, and here I am back in parking again after being out. I oversaw the entertainment district for the city of Houston. I was there for maybe about 3 months, and lo and behold, they added a valet. So they didn't have it when I started. So he didn't lie to me, the guy that I was talking to, but it came very quick after that. Luckily for me, the coin boxes never did come back, and that would have been a deal breaker because they were really, truly hard.
Yeah.
So I did that as a contractor at the city of Houston for a while. I was probably there for about 3 years, and an opportunity at the NRG football stadium came open for a event parking to oversee all the parking for the NRG stadium. And I was a finalist for that. And during those times, I would go to the office and have multiple interviews and everything. And I struck up a relationship with the lady who was the office manager of the operation. And so as I was waiting for interviews, we would talk and have a good time. And so at the very end, I wasn't given the opportunity for the job. So uh, I was disappointed, and the lady was more disappointed than I was. And that this was the wrong decision, but she knew of a job at MD Anderson in the park operation. And quite honestly, I had never thought about hospitals and parking at that point. It was really more of a contractor type thing. It was more, hotels, things like that. So, so I was like, interesting. So I applied for that job, and I think the title at that point was a director. And the person I met with and interviewed with said, well, I already have somebody for that position, but we're having a manager job open over shuttles and valet. He said, it'll be less work than you do now and more money. And I said, okay, sign me up. So I started as the manager of shuttle and valet operations. And quite honestly, from a parking standpoint, coming from an entertainment district to a cancer hospital, it is different in every possible way. I mean, people aren't valeting because they want convenience and they want to be there. There's nobody that wants to be there. They have to be there. So it was and it was a hugely busy valet. And so, and MD Anderson, that same boss became a mentor. I was over vertical conveyances, so I got to be over elevators and escalators. It was a very up and down business, and landscaping, things like that. So I got to be over a lot of different stuff over the 12 years I was there. And that was very important to me. And I wanted to be, just not parking only. I liked having the multiple locations, multiple, programs.
Yeah.
So cut to 12 years at MD Anderson, UTMB, University of Texas Medical Branch. There was a position there that had parking, but it also had food services. It had student rec. It had student housing. So it had everything that built up the portfolio of an auxiliary. And I just thought that was super exciting. And it was still in the state system, which is very important now that I had 12 years in it. So the UT system. So was fortunate enough to get offered the job, and I accepted it. And in Galveston, Texas is a little bit different. It's a little different vibe than Houston. So it was a fun opportunity. I was down there for 3 years, and then the job at U of H came up, and it was at that point, I believe it was an executive director of auxiliary services, and it had no parking in it. And so I applied for it to get back into Houston, and my daughter was getting older with games and things like that, just to be a little bit closer. And so I was offered that job, and I took it, and I was out of parking forever. So that job, was very challenging. Service is probably comparable to parking in most universities. It's a beast. You got a lot of expectations, and nobody's ever going to be happy because they're having to pay for it. It's very similar. Bookstore operations and pouring rights, which is like the Coke or Pepsi type rights.
Yeah.
That was different and unique. And and vending machines. So I had all that. And my boss also oversaw the parking operation. And so in about maybe 2 or 3 months in, I would start getting a question about parking. I'm like, oh, no, I don't have parking. I have auxiliary services, right? And so then she would ask another one and another one. And I'm like, so
Uh,
then I was back in the parking business again. And I say that tongue in cheek, obviously, the parking business has been, it's one of those things that you love it and you can't help but to love it, and you hate that you love it. And I'm sure you understand that, right? But it just, so it was good to answer those questions. And then I ended up doing both for a little while. And then at the very last 4 or 5 years, I just did strictly parking because it was very important to get the student satisfaction surveys as high as possible, making sure we had the programs in place that could be sustainable, throughout. And, so it was a good time. I enjoyed it. I got to the point, as I mentioned, within the state system where I had enough years plus being old. It's a rule of 80 that you can retire. So when I hit that rule of 80, it was, time to retire, I thought. And my wife was all excited about it. She said, "You can retire from the University of Houston." She said, "But you can't retire." So, so I was like, "Okay, well, can I get a month?" And so I did. About 24 days into January, I was approached by Reimagined, and they had an opportunity that was just too good to pass up, and a great team of people. That they were, going in the direction I wanted to go, and it still was universities. So here I am back in parking again. So I hope that wasn't too boring and too long for you there, but you said to start anywhere. So
yeah, no, it was perfect. So I learned things, and this is why I do this part of it. It's important to sort of, it rounds out the person that I know that is Neil Hart, because I could have guessed that you were in parking the whole time, but you got out, you escaped, and then you got sucked back in twice. Or was
like
it
the
3
mob,
times?
like the mob for sure. It's, but
Exactly.
but yes, but again, some of those things end up being inherent and comfortable. And I
Yep.
think that was the reason most of the time that I wanted to have the other opportunities was parking was comfortable. I knew it, the other ones challenged me to learn new things. And I
Yep.
think that was very helpful. And now with parking, it is changing so much day to day. So now you have those challenges to keep you busy. So it's a little bit different than it was 30 years ago or so.
Yeah, for sure. And I think your career, so for everybody listening, I think your career sort of speaks to, you were intentional about sort of diverse experiences, and then either the opportunity came up and or you fit into your past experience, gave you the ability to go do different things. So I'm thinking about, you were at MD Anderson and then in the medical branch, but you also had already had like food service experience and auxiliary experience, which made you a perfect match to get back to Houston.
That's
And
right.
then, of course, the fact that you knew parking, your boss was no dummy.
That's
She
right.
was like, "Okay, I've got somebody that knows parking, and parking's really special.
Yes.
Like, I always assumed that you started in parking and then those other things got glommed on, but you went the other way because your parking experience got bolted back into your career. And I guess the point is, it just speaks to, so the breadth of your experience then sort of led you to some really interesting jobs that you may not have
Absolutely.
otherwise gotten opportunities to do.
Yes, absolutely. And they all translate back to parking, right? Because they're all auxiliaries. They all, at the end of the day, there's no state funding. There is no university funding. So those kind of things, to be able to run a business
Yeah.
translates, to more than parking, but for sure for parking. It really, like I said, food service, those professionals that do that, and they've been there for a lifetime. I mean, they get beat up as bad as parking folks do, and it's a thankless deal. But when you run it right and you're able to, again, especially in a large university setting, it really helps to have that background, because even as I transitioned out of food service and somebody came in there full time, we were able to grow. And so that helped me become full-time parking. Then there was a full-time food service, and it needs it in a large
Yeah.
university. It was, yeah, there was definitely some jobs throughout MD Anderson. You were interim here and there doing different things. So a lot of things that I absolutely positively, I knew nothing about: fleet operations, little landscaping, where you learn from people. And quite honestly, before we get too far into this, the one thing for sure in my parking career that I can tell you is that I've always been blessed with great teams.
Mm,
I've always had the people around me that were professional, that were, that always were trying to do the right thing for patients, for students, for the community. So I would not be sitting here having this conversation with you without those teams and without those folks.
but I would imagine you probably attracted some of those people to you. Is that fair?
I would say it's fair, but again, I never ever want to be, which it's easy for me, but I never want to be the smartest person in the room, right? So I want to be surrounded by people who challenge you, who aren't yes folks,
Yeah.
and but we all have the same end goal in mind. We're just figuring out different ways to get there, and I've been able to really have that opportunity. At MD Anderson, most of the stuff was run in-house. Our shuttle operation was all in-house, so we were over 100 and so in-house employees. So the hybrid model of outsourcing and in-house, as my career progressed, I really started seeing the benefit of that,
Yeah.
to be able to help offset some of the cyclical things, especially in a university, to
Yeah.
where the summer dies off compared to fall and spring and those kind of things. So
Yeah. The spikes, dealing with spikes and the dips.
yes.
Okay. So I have to, in series or in season 1, we usually had 2 guests, and the purpose of the second guest was to give parking people perspective on other things that are harder than it looks. In you, I've got 2 for 1 because you've got food service. Tell us a story about food service that would allow a parking person to appreciate that their job may not suck as bad as a food service person's job did.
Yeah. Let's see. So I think there's for sure the under or over cooking of a meal, right? So I think in today's world where everything gets put onto Reddit, Reddit is, or social media at some point, some part, right?
Yeah.
And they'll say, "Oh, I just got this order, look at it." Well, or I got food poisoning from this place. And then they hashtag it and trend it and all this. So it is, and it's a culture of taking pictures of food anyway, right? So
Yeah.
even the good food you're taking a picture of, but when it's bad, and then trying to make sure that when you're doing large scale amount of orders, large scale cooking, you have the dining halls and then the individual restaurants, to be able to make sure each and every order is right. And then to make sure some people aren't fudging their report of the story, right? So the same way at a valet, if, oh, my car got dinged, right? But it's got rust on it. It couldn't have happened here, right? So
Yeah.
it's those same type of
Yeah.
things that make it hard in lines. Obviously, anywhere you try to exit a parking garage and you have to wait in line and you're not moving, you go nuts. If you're in a line at a food operator, you go nuts if you're having to wait, right? Even if all the cashiers are working, everybody's there, it's just busy. People get
Yeah.
mad, right? So those were the challenges, I think. And then the types of food, to make sure that you're hitting all types of palates, all types of religious needs, all those kind of things. So it really isn't just, hey, open up a big container, throw some stuff in there, and let people come eat it. Right? It's a lot more than that. That would make it harder than it looks, for sure.
Oh, that's good. All right. So here's what I want to know. I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
Okay.
How in the world did you do all that? Like, what did it take? How do you keep all of those plates spinning? Parking is hard enough, but if you've got food and you've got housing and you've got bookstores, how do you do it?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to the people, right, that you have with you. It starts there, having the right staff, having the dedicated staff, and then having, when you start in parking, when you start in food service, when you start in any auxiliary type operation, if you don't know that you're never or rarely going to get a thank you, if
Mm.
you need that thank you, if you need that, constant pat on the back, you're probably in the wrong industry. That
Yep.
and we've seen people come and go that just, well, this is not for me. I did a good job and nobody but you told me thank you. Right. And it was like, well,
Totally.
it's an expectation. They're not going to say thank you very often, but that can't stop us from doing it this way. So first of all, the mindset keeps you going, right? To know
Yep.
that, hey, no news is good news. Quiet is golden, right? So if there's nothing posted on social media, nobody sends a email to the president's office, those are good days, right? So and understanding that, and then also being very meticulous about people, processes, and technology. So if we're really truly doing those things, if we're concentrating on our people, both the ones that work with us and the ones that we're serving, if we're concentrating on their needs and we're listening, that helps, right? Because
Yep.
a lot of times if you're listening and they see the effort, that first time they might not post it on social media, or they might not send that email above you. They might come to you. So if you're listening to them and you can help them, that's, that's how
Yeah.
you keep those plates spinning. The process is making sure you're transparent. U of H, I had a tremendous marketing and outreach team that continued to put things out there and would make sure if you were looking for the information, you could find it. There's some people that just don't want to know that information. They'd rather just complain. But the ones that really wanted to learn could find it. And I think that process, how we did those things, how we communicated those things, that keeps it going. And then, of course, going to be happy for you, but the technology part, right? Like finding the right technology that works, that helps you do your job easier, smarter, more efficient. Those are the things that you have to just keep focusing on. I mean, and sort of everything that I've done previously and I'm doing going forward are based around those things, right? Like what can we do to listen to the folks? What can we
Yeah.
do to make the processes better? And what technology can augment what we're trying to accomplish? I think there's a lot of other things that go into it, but those are sort of the big things that keep those plates spinning.
Yeah. Okay. So at your peak, how many people did you have reporting to you?
At any given time, there was 130 or so full-time employees. Then sometimes with part-time or contracted employees, it would get up to 225, 250.
Yeah.
And it would fluctuate. And again, not all the time.
Sure.
But the 135 at one point at MD Anderson was all in-house, and I had multiple areas. Of course, it had multiple layers and reported up, but it was spectacular at that
Yeah.
point.
So my coach tells me all the time, he's like, a leader's job is to position themselves on the battlefield in the right place, right? So give me your perspective on, you've got 4 different functional departments. They are radically different, but they all sort of have the same time pressure, quality pressure. How did you decide where to position yourself on the battlefield?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brian. I'm proud of you for that one. I think living and learning, obviously 32 years ago, I would have failed miserably at it. And
Sure.
you do have to fail and go, oh, that was not the right way.
Yeah.
I think failing is okay. At least I keep telling myself that and hopefully I'm right. But at the same time, we don't make the same mistake twice, right? So you live and
Yep.
learn. And I think you position yourself based on, again, going back to the listening part of it. So what are you hearing above you? Because one other little parking story was when I first started out, I had one boss who apparently only cared about how clean the island was at the entrance. Like, so if there was dust or exhaust debris on the island, he went nuts. So, and that's all we ever heard about. So we're smart, right? So when we knew he was coming over, we had a person cleaning the island. The island was always clean. The rest of it behind us could have been just in chaos, but he only concentrated on that island. Right? So
Yeah.
it's learning those little things by listening on what the priorities are. Because again, one of the hardest things, and I sort of joke around that I was institutionalized for 24 years because, it really, truly is a state bureaucracy, right? So to be able to understand what the goals are of the people above you and the above them, right? So what's important to them. And so you sort of position yourself in those areas to where, hey, okay, we know the spotlight's on food service now. So it's taking first place. And we're going to keep running all these other ones and we're going to do the best we can, but we're going to concentrate on these 2-3 things that we keep hearing over and over again.
Yeah.
Affordability is, was always a big word, right? And what does that mean? Affordable to who, right? Affordable to this student or this faculty member or this, how do we determine affordability? So So really by trying to listen, have focus groups, have your advisory committees, do those things where we're trying to get an understanding. But really, I think when you have 4 different operations and you have things, obviously the day-to-day, keeping great SOPs, again, going back to the processes, making sure those are tight, making sure those are the way we want them to be.
Yeah.
The daily stuff going, because those one-offs or the emergency things are always going to happen, and you just got to be prepared for those. But to try to set that baseline to a standard that all of us are hitting on a daily basis, and then strategically move as things pop up.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's what I heard loud and clear is you've got to know what's important to the people that are above you and below you, right? Because
Yes.
the people below you or your consumer will leapfrog you to have
100%.
conversations, right?
100%.
And then of course the people above you, we all know you want to throw an organization into chaos, change the leader.
Yep.
Because everything changes. It goes from everything's important to only the island's important when you change leaders.
That's
Right.
right.
And so your ability to sort of key into that that's probably not second nature. You have to get hit over the head a couple of different times, but ultimately you got to know above and below. And then I think the second thing you talk about people, process, and I remember,
Technology.
and technology, of course. How could I forget that one? Standards, like being able to create and hold standards also, and have people that like carry the standard flag for you. I see how important that is at Parker.
Yes.
I can try and set a standard, or I can expect a standard, but if I don't have people that can like leave my office or leave the leadership table and go carry it out, it's not that valuable.
And they have to understand and buy into the standard, right? And I think that's the whys behind things. I think as we progress in our careers, I think sometimes we forget to say the whys. And even, and again, throughout every aspect of my career there, it's going back and trying to say the whys and explain it. And everybody has a choice, right? I mean, we're some, as I mentioned before, there's just some folks that aren't cut out, just like I wouldn't be cut out for other things, right? If I had to sit behind a desk every day and just do that every day, it would not fit right with me, because I have to have those multiple things. You gotta have that ability to or that quote unquote fun of, oh, this is going wrong. Let's go fix that, right? This kind of thing. Or well, this is a challenge. They're requesting this. That I've never heard of that before. Let's go see what that's about, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I made the point, I think probably 2 podcasts ago. I do love the concept that if you're in parking, probably food service, other thankless jobs, you have to have the internal gratitude, not fortitude, to not need to be thanked all the time. Like you have to get your self-worth from yourself, because you're not going to get it from the public, right? You're just not going to get it.
And honestly, you got to be able to look at the job and go, look at that, we did this, or we didn't hear anything for this 2 weeks. And that is that gratitude, right? That is,
for sure.
Hey, we made it a whole month without this, or we raised these rates and we only got 3 complaints, right? Instead of 1,000, so it's really, again, a testament to how you set it up, how you communicate it, how you listen.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So maybe one more question about your past, and then I can't wait to hear your thought process around how you got to where you are. So what do you see? You've got lots of experience, 32 years of experience, most of it in healthcare and university operations. What do you see are some of the biggest, I won't call them mistakes, but operational hurdles that others don't get it yet, and that you think you could help them with if they thought through the way they're doing things differently?
Yeah. I think, seeing a lot of times in past experience, I've seen where we need a 10 or 15 year pro forma, 10 or 15 year budget, right? Or 10 or 15 year look ahead.
Yeah.
Well, that's all great and good, but really it's 2 to 3 years. I think if you can really break it down to 2 or 3 years, because especially in university settings, to your point of leadership changes, to your board changes or economic changes, all these things you can, best laid plans of mice and men, right? So it's, I think really you can have that long range planning and it might be important, but to minimize it to the 2 or 3 years inside of that and really watch it and watch those trends, and see how close you got and then celebrate the wins and then go, hey, I was plus or minus 2% on this. That's pretty damn good, right? I mean, we were, we're understanding the business. We're able to see what we're doing. And I think, and then rolling those 2 or 3 years each time into that 15, right? So keep sort of pushing it out. But I think that's been one of the things, when I went into the University of Houston, there was a lot of things that were done before I got there that affected us then, right? So it was decisions that were made 7, 8 years ago. Oh, well, we won't raise rates for these 3 years because that's the nice positive way, right? And it'll make people happy. Well, it probably did make those people happy, but it created chaos for the ones that when we added 2 new garages and the debt service went nuts and you had a increase rates, right? So that I think, understanding every decision you make today affects down the road and trying to understand what that looks like. Hey, if we don't set, again, back to that setting the standard or the understanding of at the very minimum rates might go up 3% at the very minimum. So let's everybody understand it. You might not like it, but understand if it goes 3%, we told you, right? And we told you it was going to happen. If it goes 10%, then be mad, and then let's talk about it, right? And we better have a good reason of why. So I think it's really trying your best to right size the operation to fit. And I mentioned it a little bit before about in-house versus contracting. How does that fit? Is it a full-blown in-house, full-blown contracted? Is it a hybrid? And I think, a lot of the times over the past 5 years and in my new role, I think that I've seen where people don't understand there is that hybrid model, and that can help you, right? Especially in a place where you're going to, and, again, going back to food service, it's either in-house or outsourced. And what's the right model and what facilities you need behind there? How does that look, right? So, well, maybe you do the in-house food service, but you have a contracted dietitian, right? So that you get that hybrid where you can do those things. I think, being willing, and again, as I mentioned, it was changing so fast, just, technology, the ability to do things with cameras, just AI, right? So all those things are coming, they're here and they're coming even more, right? So like some of us older folks, we got to be able to, not say, well, in my day we did it this way. We gotta, listen. We gotta at least look into it and see what could work. Cause I think is to leave it better than what you found it. Right. And I hope that that's what I've done previously. I believe that I have. I think if you talk to most folks, they would say that, but is to continue to do that. And the only way to do that is to be flexible, is to be, to be able to see a few years out, understand the consequences of what might sound good now might be very bad later. And I think those are the ones that really hit us over the head. There was a couple other things I had were leased, in a garage, we had a leased space, right? We had people in there that, we only charge them $1 rent. What the hell? That was, or whatever it was, right? But it's like, and forever. Who made that deal? And it was made in, 2002 or whatever. Right? So that puts us in a bad spot in 2025. It's really just trying to understand and do the best you can of always foreseeing the future as best you can.
Yeah. And leaving yourself some optionality.
Yes.
Now, the other thing that I heard, I could guess in that lease probably got made by the athletic department or by some other department. And that might speak to your ability to sort of build relationships with those folks to sort of at least have a dialogue before a deal like that gets made, maybe?
Yeah, and absolutely. And again, who makes it evergreen, right? Like, I mean, how
Yeah.
do you make a deal evergreen? Because things change. So
Yeah.
if you have
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
3-year agreement, right? But
Yeah.
at least at the end of the road. But the other problem there is, if it was that dollar, and then you go, oh, we're going to charge you $10 now. Well, we really should be charging you $200.
Yeah.
They're mad about the 10. Well, that's 10 times what I was paying. You weren't supposed to be paying that to begin with, right? So those are the hard parts, right?
Yeah.
It's like we can't look at what the percentage is for a bad deal, what the market rate is, and what this is here. We're trying to meet you, we're trying to compromise, we're trying to
Yeah.
help you, but it can't sustain at $1.
Yeah.
So I mean that's always the hard part. It is, and again, being in the large bureaucracy in an institution, it's like, well, this is the way, it's like, so the culture because when I first got to the University of Houston, we didn't charge parking for like Olympic events. We didn't charge parking for like the theater, the opera house on campus. We didn't charge, right? No. So the bad guy would always have to go in and go, hey, either we can continue to raise the rates on you, right? But as an employee or a faculty or a student, or we can start spreading this out, and here's some of the spreading out of what we can do. And, luckily we had great people there, and they would be mad, but they would understand. Right. And they would, well, if I go downtown, I have to pay for parking. If I go here, I got to pay for parking. So still don't like it, but I understand why you're trying to do it. And that's, and some of it was, hey, that's better than me having my parking go up much higher. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really getting that culture and setting it. It was very, very hard, but once you get it there, then you can build on it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I suspect that all of the things that we just talked about are one of the reasons that Reimagine saw the value in bringing you on board. My question is, how did you get to that decision? Like, what was your mindset around the opportunity at Reimagined?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, obviously great leadership, headed in a direction that made me excited, being able to do universities. And again, it's a challenge going back to that, where it keeps me, it's been a long time since I was a private contractor, and when I was a city manager, it's totally different than being a vice president of university operations. It has, I had to worry about my one little pie, where this one I have to worry about, trying to gain trust in business and things like that throughout the nation, and even Canada to some degree, right? So that's a challenge to me. I was very happy that they were willing to allow me to have this challenge, so we're going to do everything we can to, I want to learn more and more about all universities and their parking operations. So I've been going on some fact-finding tours, not sales calls, just going there and learning, what their biggest challenges are, what their, biggest accomplishments are, how they do things. And, I've been to about 4 or 5 since I started in February. And, my hope is to continue to do that and sort of catalog those and really understand, because I have a frame of reference of the University of Houston. And of course, we talk to other universities and being part of the board, of the Texas Parking and Transportation Association. I talk to a lot of people, but to be able to list it and understand it and go see it, that has been truly, fun. And it's an opportunity for me to really go, oh, wow. There was one, university that they did parking as a like a transportation fee. So everybody was getting charged X. And I was like, how in the world does that work? Right. Because I could just see the people, again, from my frame of reference, it'd be like, well, I don't have a car. How could you charge me? It's like, we're charging everybody, and it's like, but how? So, and how does that work? Right. So learning those kind of things, and just meeting the people in the industry, that and continue to meet more and more people, is to me, so, and obviously it needs to turn into business, and we hope it turns into business, but that's not where I'm starting. It's really understanding it, so that when we go to these places and we say, we can make your operation better, we're listening to you. we heard you. We also know best practices around you, around the industry,
Yeah.
those kind of things. When the opportunity arose and outside of also being able to make my wife happy, I thought this was a perfect opportunity with, like I said, a great group of folks.
Yeah. Okay. So, what will your primary responsibility be?
My primary responsibility is to keep the universities we have, make sure that the client is happy, make sure that those standards, those people, process, and technology are being reinforced throughout, sort of and then continue to grow upon that and make sure that everybody understands that Reimagined Parking has a university vertical that is dedicated to universities and concentrated with folks who have done universities before and has the knowledge base of where they led the university and where they're seeing other universities, right? So that they have the subject matter expert type things for universities. So obviously it's and again, to get that information out there, really, that about the hybrid, about hey, it's not a one-stop shop. It certainly love to help do everything, but can do this or this, in a few conversations that I've had on those tours, people have, I've had to explain that because I think it's either a choice of doing it all in house or doing it all contractor. And it's like, no, you're in charge of your own.
Yeah.
If you just want Reimagine Parking to do a call center, we can do that. If you want us to just do enforcement, those kind of things. So
Yeah. Like, fill the gaps.
we had the hybrid model at U of H and it was very successful and it is very successful. And that might not be the best fit for University X or University Y. And so
Yeah.
talking through those, I think that's where we go in the expectation.
Yeah. Okay. So, how much of your job? I know you're only a couple months in, but how much of your job now are you running on instinct or experience? And what part have you had to sort of rewire your thinking?
I would say I'm learning every day. And again, it's a quasi sales job, right? So it is.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we have to get business. And
Yeah.
we want business and things like that. But
Yep.
it's my approach is relation, based,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And trying to understand the business. We've done a couple of proposals, that I've really only seen it because prior to being institutionalized, I was only, one area, right? So,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of contractors come and go through my 24 years. I've seen a lot of RFP responses. I've seen a lot of presentations when you get to the short list, right? So those are the things that I'm learning how it works today and trying to instill some of the things when I was sitting on the other side of the table. Hey, what I wanted to hear was this. What I wanted to be
Mm.
addressed was this, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So, learning that and making sure, because even when we wrote them as an institution, when we were put out RFPs, sometimes we were asking for the world and we weren't very clear. And we would have to, to get those right questions to be very clear so you can submit the best proposal and that you're answering and addressing the concerns and needs of the people putting it out.
Yeah.
That is, so to answer your question, the instinct of things we already have or things we're talking about, that is relying a lot on that. The learning of seeing it from a different lens and being to again, being, software, all the different softwares that are out there, all the different things that can be done for a parking operation. So not just, again, off my lens of what we used at
Right.
University of Houston, right? So
Yeah.
to compare those things, understand those, that's important to me so that we get the right fit for the right university.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for someone who is like you, well, sort of like you, spent their entire career on the operations side, on the parking side, but they're thinking about making a change like you made, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think you're eventually going to come back. And I think we all come back, right? So I think it's one of those ones you gotta, like, I made the change because, again, I wanted those different areas in auxiliary, right? I wanted,
Yep.
Even when I was doing the city of Houston and I went to NRG for the stadium, I wanted a big event venue
Mm. Yeah.
parking experience, right? It was the next challenge. I was young and
Yep.
had loads of energy, back then, right? So
Sure.
it wasn't anything about what I was doing. It was about learning something new and having a new challenge. And same
Yeah.
way at MD Anderson, I mean, honestly, I could have still been there and I would have loved being there. And it was, the mission and vision of MD Anderson, what they try to accomplish, you know, you don't leave that without thinking through it because it's a great place
Yeah.
that's doing great things. Right. And
Yep.
so when I left there, again, it was for the right opportunity. So I think anybody, if you have, and obviously I ended up back just doing parking, right? But I had the opportunity to do those other things, and it's so I think anybody thinking of leaving, just understand that you got to do what A, makes you happy, B,
Yeah.
That challenges you. I think
Yeah.
where I never regretted the changes or the opportunities, and I didn't. I also don't want to be one of those people, and I never wanted to be one of those people that said, I could have or I should have done that, right?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. Yeah.
I tried it, and again, if you fail, you move on. But, I didn't want to look back and go, well, I could have done that or I should have done
Yeah.
that, So and I think all of us know when we see an opportunity that really goes, oh, that sounds like me, that would be something, right?
Right.
And again, I was a little bit pigeonholed because of the state, because once I got in there long enough, I was like, I've been in here, I'm going to
Yeah.
retire from here, right?
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not giving up now. So there were some opportunities that I consciously missed because it would have been outside of the state of Texas. It would have been outside the retirement system that I was in. And, as the family evolved and things like that, there was decisions that had to be made on, hey, I can make it to this rule of 80. And quite honestly, when I turned in that paperwork that said rule of 80 and I signed that thing, all kind of emotions.
I'll bet.
Scared as hell, first of all, because it was weird, right?
Yeah.
Because you just, truly, it was what you did every day for 24 years. So it's like, you're not going to do it again, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
happy,
Yeah.
just, it was a full range of emotions,
Yeah.
but it was the right time. And again, don't regret it. And, I left it in very, very good hands with great people there. And, and I'm happy to be in my new opportunity with great folks as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You did leave Houston in good hands. Got some
Yes.
great people back there for sure. We've enjoyed working with them for a long time.
Yeah.
And I have to believe if I were Reimagined, I'd be thrilled to have you. You've got a world of experience that's going to be super, super valuable. So that's awesome too. Okay. So before we go to the lightning round, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
No, I don't think so. But I do appreciate that question because I ask it in interviews, and as we're teaching, and as people learn, that question right there, I would probably turn that back on you. You probably get some wild answers when you ask that question, right?
Yeah.
I do ask it in interviews, and it's just a great question. But
Yeah.
I think we hit on most of the ones.
Yeah. Okay. All right, good. So let's go. These are 6 questions that I ask everyone.
Okay.
All right. But I normally stump everybody on question 1. So I'm just warning you. So if you've got a good one, I'll be impressed.
Okay.
So the first question is, what phrase are you known for?
What phrase am I known for?
So someone,
You can't fall out of a basement.
okay. You can't, so give me context. Tell me the context around, I mean, I think I understand it, but to whom are you saying this? And then who's repeating it down the line?
Unfortunately, I might say it a lot because I get it in personal life as well. But like if, something, oh, well, this was better than this. And I was like, well, you can't fall out of a basement. Right. So, yeah, of course it was better because you had nowhere else to go. Right. We were already in the basement. So the elevator can only go in one direction, and so I probably do say it too much because I've heard my daughter repeat it.
See, there you
Heard
go.
it in personal situations where it gets thrown back at me. When it gets thrown back at me, I'm like, damn it. Right.
Yeah.
So I would, off the top of my head, that would probably be one that.
Okay. That's a good one. If people are repeating it, that's a good one for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, what is the hardest thing you've ever done in your life?
Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I don't know. Oh, that one, obviously we'll keep it work related on that one. But I think that was the hardest thing I ever did was retire, honestly, because there's so many other things about it to make sure the benefits, make sure this, make sure that, that
Yeah.
you understand it. And it's not easy,
Yeah.
the paperwork and things like that. So, and then to leave, because to my knowledge, nobody was kicking me out, right? I could have stayed, and it wasn't a forced retirement. It wasn't anything like that. It was, in my opinion, my time to
Yeah.
retire
Yeah.
at that point. So it was hard from a work
Yeah.
side.
You went out on top.
Yes,
It's hard to go out on top because you feel like you don't know if you've left anything on the table or not.
that's right. And you could get what's the next top, right? And the next
Yeah.
top. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that's my goal with the new position and the new role is to have that feeling again, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Okay. So you could have gone personal on the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, because the next question is, what's the hardest part of your parking job?
Oh, well, there you go. The right now is just the learning of it and just understanding the role and, just making sure I get, and I'm doing everything, because again, sort of going back for the institutionalized part of it, you knew what was expected every day. You knew it was sort of same thing every day, but different. Right.
Yeah.
So this one is sort of all brand new to me. So that's hard in a good way, right? Like it's a challenge. So that's I think that's it probably.
Yeah. Drinking from a fire hose at this point,
It
which is
is.
good.
Yep.
Yeah. It's good. It's not the
Learning new
same old
people,
thing.
learning new things.
Yeah.
Learn, again, had relationships, with bosses, all those things. You got to just learn the new way of doing things. And quite honestly, I will give you an insight on this. I was used to being in charge, right? So like of a big
Yeah.
operation, right? And
Yeah.
people would come to me for decisions. People would come for me for, looking to me for answers. So it's been hard that's different because of just the way it's being built and where we
Yeah.
are today, right? So
Yeah.
it's sort of you're on an even keel kind of thing now, and there's nobody needing me or nobody like
Yeah.
coming to me with that
Yeah.
emergency. No, so those are the things. Not that I'm want emergencies, but it just not happening. So
Yeah.
it's different.
Give it time. Give it time.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Next, my fourth question is, if you could wave your magic wand and fix anything in parking, what would it be?
I think it would be the perception of university parking as a cash cow. I think
Mm.
that would, be able to also at the same time make people understand why it needs to be what it is. Like, because we spent so much time, so much energy on it, and it's sort of one of those you're never going to get there because there's just going to be people who get plausible deniability, don't want to know the truth, they don't want to understand it. So I
Yeah.
think it would be to because one of my favorite parts of working at the University of Houston was engaging with students about parking, right? We would have little focus groups or little things like that where they would come in and challenge you. But at the end of the day, be willing to understand and see why it's going this way, right? Those you'd go home those days and you were happy those days, right? Because
Yeah.
they beat you up pretty good. But when we left, they were now going out to their friends and their peers and saying, well, it has to be this way because of this, this, this. But they're trying this, they're trying that, they've tried this. So to be able to really not even so much with the wand to have everybody just sort of drink the Kool-Aid and believe it, but to have the ability to debate
Yeah.
correctly, right? Like where
Yeah.
at the end we're willing to compromise. That
Yeah.
would be, because that was always fun to me and a challenge. And I would even say to the faculty as well, because they were challenging as well, sometimes even more so than students. So to be able to not just come in with a closed mind and be able to understand it, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. A little civic discourse, as it were.
Yes.
Nice. All right. So now, when you're not parking cars, what do you do for fun?
Well, I'm not parking cars. Why? So I play a lot of basketball still.
Oh.
I played junior college basketball a long, long time ago. And I've been playing ever since. Playing a couple of leagues a week, full court,
Wow.
still playing. So that is, I don't know if I do it so much for fun anymore as it's the most cathartic thing I could do, right? It is my true, I'll get pushed out of this house if I haven't played basketball in a while because everybody knows I need to go play, right? So they just go, you just need to go play basketball. I was like,
Wow.
so the one thing I've added recently to that is a part of a team now that's part of the National Senior Games. So part of me kills me that it's got the word senior in it. The other part in there is we played in Iowa last summer. So it's every other year, and it's truly huge Olympic Games, and it's got ranges from 55 to 85. It's bowling, archery, badminton. I mean, it has all these different things along with basketball, right? So you're up there in Des Moines and you see all these folks, and it was just an amazing thing. So my regular full court leagues that I'm in, I love those, and I have to do those. But the senior games is now sort of that little secondary thing that and it's super competitive and it's real. That's anybody that's of a certain age, of 55 or over, that has a sport, because golf's in it too, things like that. So bowling. So I mean, you can look that up and join that. It's pretty spectacular. The other thing is, I try to play golf, but that's not necessarily fun. And I'm not as good as you, Kent. So, but I try. And
Yes.
I hope
we have fun when we play.
That's right. Yeah. So, but that's, hanging out with the family of course, and then the basketball and golf are the two things that those are especially when it gets real stressful, those are the things that are my go-to relief deals.
Yeah. I can totally relate.
Yeah.
It was baseball and golf for me. And then Jill said, you need to pick one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm picking golf.
Yeah.
So, because I'm not doing deals on the baseball field. I might do a deal on the golf course for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's fun. All right. Last question, taking us around the corner. What are you most proud of?
Well, I'll go personal on this one. 100%. Sure. My daughters. That's yeah.
Yeah.
She's amazing, and most proud of her.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And
don't get me started talking about my daughter. I'll start crying too. So I'm with you. Yeah, I got
you. You're very mean for asking that question, but for sure that's the most proud of. She's 22, setting out in her own way now, getting be out there, and just happy we got here, and just to be able to be here talking to you, to be part of an industry that is growing and changing. And, being able to retire, I'm truly blessed. I can't really say the daughter is the top of that pyramid, but there's so many things that I'm proud of. Proud of the relationships I've built, proud of, the family I have, proud of everything. I have no real complaints. I am definitely not in the basement, and I can't, fall out of it. Right. So that question, I'm sorry, I got a little emotional there, but
that's okay.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's why that's one of the reasons I love you, right? You're real. You're definitely authentic. And like I said, you get me talking about my daughter and I'll start crying too. So
for the record, I didn't cry. I got choked up.
Okay.
Just I'll get beat up by my friends, right? So, but there's no tears.
Okay. Does that degree matter? I'm not sure it would matter.
I just got a little choked up. That's all. Okay. It's the allergies. It's the pollen.
Oh yeah. A good host would have recognized that. But the host also has a daughter, so he empathizes. He's there with you for sure. All right.
Yeah. Dad, right? Dad.
Yeah, indeed. Appreciate that. And so, all right. I mean, thank you for your time. I am super excited. I mean, we covered a lot of ground. Like, we got some background, the importance of your intentionality around the different exposures. I think that is super key. And then it like, you give hope to people who take a left turn and they're like, man, I hope this left turn turns out. But then it turns out that the food service or the transportation piece of the work that they did couples in with parking or whatever else, or events, and it worked out great. So you're sort of a roadmap for them. And then I have to imagine all of the experience that you've got coupled with with Reimagined and the work that they're doing is going to pay off big for both you and for the company. And so I think your next stage is going to be bright. I'm looking forward to following your progress and being one of your biggest fans.
Oh, I appreciate that very much.
So I wish you well in the new job. I can't wait to see you soon. I'm not sure when that'll be, but again, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for the opportunity. And if you have analytics on this, and if it's the lowest viewed podcast ever, just let me know. Because, well, again, I don't mind failing. We'll put that up. I'll have a plaque that said, I'm sure my parents are going to watch it and my family. But outside of that, I'll be curious to see.
I think you'll be surprised. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, presented by Parker Technology. Please leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Make sure you tune in next month as we continue to uncover tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. Bye for now.